Welcome to the Alliance for Safe Kids Ask Around Yorktown program. Our guests tonight are Detective Sean Lewis and Detective Brian Shanahan of the Yorktown Police Department. Both of them work very closely with the Alliance for Safe Kids with our underage drinking program that we have under our federal grant. Both Brian and Sean are the officers that set up the sting operations and also work with the underage youth that are involved in it. And tonight we're going to be talking about a program that we're going to be doing before the end of this month of November called the Responsible Vendors Training Program. And we're going to be setting that up, and it looks like it's going to be Wednesday, November 22nd, 2011, subject to change, of course, with the weather conditions that have been going on very bad here for the last couple of weeks. So, first of all, I just want to say that we were very lucky, the town of Yorktown and actually the Alliance for Safe Kids, along with the police department, to be sent down to Orlando, Florida in August to represent this community. Myself and Brian were picked to go down and do an underage conference on underage drinking and did a presentation on our program that we do here in Yorktown, which is this is our third year that we've been down in Florida and in some other parts of the country to tell them about the good work that we've been doing here in our community. Brian, you were there. How were things down there? What was some of the topics we talked about?
Well, we covered all of the aspects of how the successes that we've had here in Yorktown and our alliance with the Alliance for Safe Kids, working together with the community and the police department. The programs that we have in place now that we have been successful with to reduce underage drinking and keep kids and teens safe in our community. It worked out very well. Unfortunately, with this storm that we just had here in New York, it would have been nice to have been down there this week.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it did not cost, and this is one of the wonderful programs as well, it didn't cost the taxpayers anything to have at least myself go down on behalf of the police department, because it was a very short trip. I would have loved to spend more time down there. It was about 6 hours I got to spend in Florida for that one day, but we flew down. The Alliance for Safe Kids took care of all the expenses to get us down there and have us present. In most cases, when we do, or you and I have done several conferences, in most cases when we do some of these conferences, we get like 20 or 30 people from across the nation. This time it was very interesting. I think we had just under 100 people from almost every area of the United States. We had people from the Virgin Islands, we had people from Washington State, we had a lot of people from out in the Midwest. It was very interesting to see that these communities have many similar issues that we have here, doing more with less, how the economy has strapped them to really do enforcement from a police angle, to keep the underage drinking to a minimum and really try to zero that out. But our program went very well. It was very well received down there. We had a lot of great questions. We've been communicating with several of the people, the panelists from down there via email. And we came back with some good ideas, and we gave some great ideas of our successes here. And hopefully some of our programs that we started here and that we've seen have worked. Some of the other communities throughout our nation can use some of those and put them into play.
While we were there, I happen to have a place in Florida myself, and it was nice to meet people that are from my community, from where I am in Florida sometimes, who were doing the same job on the Palm Beach County Sheriff's Office. In fact, spent time with us and discussed some of their initiatives that they're doing. And it's amazing how they're so close together, and the same problems even in Florida, or whether it be in, like you said, Washington, the state of Washington, to see that we're all on the same token, we're still doing the same job trying to prevent the underage drinking.
And the whole conference itself, it's important to note, the whole conference itself has to do with keeping young people safe. It wasn't just a police conference, it wasn't just a community conference, it was a joint effort conference where it's the police working with the community members, working with not-for-profits to really help. What are the programs that are out there? What are the successes? How can we work together as a nation and really bring these issues to an end and a close? You see so many issues now with your cyberbullying. You see people getting themselves hurt, in trouble. This aspect of the alcohol end, if we can reduce those percentages and reduce those statistics nationwide, then we're being successful.
I agree 100%. And over the years, Sean has been out on the street working alongside with you and with this program. And both of you have become familiar faces to our community, in our stores and our places that sell
Is
alcohol.
that a good thing, or?
Well, that's a good thing, I should say. The stores themselves, we come a long way, and I think you and I covered this once before on one of our other shows. We've come a long way since 2001 or 2002 when we first started this initiative here in the community. We would go out and we'd notice that we'd have 15 places to do, and out of 15, 14 would fail.
Right.
And would you maybe
Well,
tell
I
us a
can
little about
remember
that?
when we first started doing this, we would get an underage kid, maybe a boy or a girl, 17, 18 years old. We would bring them to all the different stores.
Right.
And as we would get there, we would start to see the problems on whether the person behind the counter couldn't do the math properly when they were checking the ID to see how old the person was.
Right.
Or they were just not checking the ID at all. And we got together and we said, hey, we got to do something about this because we have all these stores that are failing and all these stores are selling to underage kids. We got to do something about it. And we did. We got down and we came up with some lists of what the problems were. And we felt it was always good to go out to the bars and restaurants, invite the owners in to a meeting, and then we went through all the list of the problems and what can we do to make their employees do the right thing. And it's taken many years, but I think we resolved most of the problems as far as who's not doing the right thing. All these stores are trying to do the right thing.
Absolutely.
Do they make mistakes? Every once in a while, somebody does make a mistake.
And I think initially when
I think they're trying.
with what you're talking about here, Sean, is great to point out that it's not about let's just go out and arrest people, or let's just go out and enforce law. It's about working together to get everybody on the same page. We don't go out there, and you were a big part of this for many years. It's not that you go out there and try to trick people or trick a convenience store. It's here is an actual situation. How do we deal with this? What's the best procedure possible? And we help to educate. And I think that's the biggest thing. It's not the enforcement end of it in the beginning. It's the educational end of it.
Right. It's a balancing act that's taken many years for us in this community, especially. But here in Westchester, there's like one or two of us left up in the northern tier here that are doing this. And the Cortland, of course, along with the New York State Police in Westchester County, and the town of Yorktown, of course, have stayed right on the program and have done an excellent job. And it's basically a triangle because it's not only the one part is as underage drinking comes from the stores or these outlets. The other is the education of parents, the education of the youth itself, and that's where you're coming in. You're working along with this responsible vendors training program, which is a wonderful idea. I mean, it's just great to get them all together and give them the information they need. And so this upcoming one that we're going to be doing, there's a couple of things that you're going to be involved with on this, and both Brian and both Sean and Brian will be trainers and instructors on that day. So maybe you can give us a little overview of what that program is going to consist of.
Well, one of the things we wanted to do is we tried to get across to the Yorktown Chamber of Commerce how important this kind of thing is for any business that sells alcohol in town. And we're hoping that we get a very large response. We think we have somewhere in the neighborhood of, about 200 and something businesses here in town in all different shapes sell alcohol in one form or another, whether it's a gas station, a restaurant, a liquor store, a bowling alley. I mean, there's so many different places that sell alcohol in town. And we want to make sure we get across to everybody that they really should respond and come to this meeting, come to this training, and learn something. Some of the things that we're trying to get across, we want to maintain a safe environment where alcohol is being served. Whether it's a bar, restaurant, we want it to be done correctly. We're trying to promote positive alcohol sales. We don't want kids being sold. We don't want any underage kids out there being sold to, which is very important. We're trying to ultimately prevent the DWIs, prevent any alcohol-related crime. That's our goal. We've seen too many kids killed in car accidents, problems with parties here in Yorktown, and we're trying to stop that. We've identified some of the problems as to how these kids get the alcohol. Every once in a while, you'll get somebody working at maybe a bar or restaurant that feels they don't really seem to care about the underage, and they make the sale. And we want to get across to them, it's not worth it to any business to be selling to underage kids, because ultimately they're not going to make any more money off them.
You've seen a marked difference in their attitudes too about this training?
Oh, absolutely. Or, you know, when we first started doing this training years and years ago, we'd get just a couple of people would show up. Now that room is packed. We pack town hall every time. Liability is a big thing for these businesses. They understand that they can be sued, they can lose their business. Just one terrible event that happens from someone to an underage, whether a car accident or something happens in their parking lot, all those things come back to the business, and they can ultimately put that business out of business.
In New York State, the dram shop laws is a section of our laws that deal with that liability of a bartender or a restaurant or a liquor store selling to a visibly intoxicated individual or someone who meets those signs of being visibly intoxicated. And you go over some of those things, talking about people with their coming in and buying alcohol, that if they look like they're intoxicated or have a problem. You're going to be touching on that base?
We are. We're going to talk about the different cues and different behaviors and things to look for, similar to what a police officer might look for on the street when he pulls somebody over for DWI. We don't want these bartenders serving people that are so intoxicated that, and then somehow leave their restaurant, either get into a car or get into a fight, go home, and now there's domestic violence. We want these. And most of the bartenders are very, very good here in town. We're not trying to say they're not. But we want to emphasize the things that to look for so that we don't have these problems. And they need to know they can't be serving people too much alcohol, because once they're intoxicated, there's more liabilities that come in for the store.
Do you have some experience also dealing with underage drinking with the IDs and stuff? Both of you have been out on checking these restaurants at night. And what are some of the forms of ID that's really acceptable for, for them to take and check?
Well, I think most of the establishments really have come on board with the technology end of things. Most of the bars and restaurants are all using computer scanners which verify identifications. I think there are many young people who are trying to get away with out-of-state IDs, thinking that they're not going to be able to be checked via computer. The really acceptable form is if you're in New York State, it's a New York State driver's license, and those are able to be checked through the computer, and they take a picture of you. It's really cut back on the use of fake IDs. The bouncers and the security working at some of these busy businesses, especially on holidays or weekends when we have a big college crowd, they have been trained extra to what to look for, make sure no one's coming inside doors, making sure everyone gets ID'd, that there's some type of bracelet or marker that's on people to show that they have been ID'd already. And I think that's very important for a program like this to help them to understand what a fake ID looks like. A lot of people sometimes say, well, that's just the police's job. Well, unfortunately, in these times, and our current town administration has cut our police department by 10%. That's less that we can do. That's why we depend on working together with these bar owners, with these retailers, with the Alliance for Safe Kids. If we can all work as a big group, it helps to do that part of the education and the enforcement to reduce all of that. So if we can get all of those people on board to cut back on the fake IDs and really be right on top of it, it saves a lot of issues and a lot of problems from, snowballing.
One of the things too that we see, basically it's a license, whether it's a New York license, Connecticut license. It's a license, it's a passport, it's a military ID. Those are acceptable forms of identification. Problem becomes is you get somebody comes here with a Tennessee license. The bar owner looks at it and they're saying, you know what, I don't know if this is a good license or not. We tell them, look, if you don't feel it's a good license, don't make the sale, you don't have to let them in.
Right.
Every year we try to give out those books. There's a book, we give them to all the bars and restaurants. John Bartolini, down in Peekskill, owns the Budweiser distributor here. He tends to give out those books to every one of his customers here in Yorktown. He's been doing that for years.
Yep.
And we always thank him for doing that. And then they can open the book and they can compare that license to see if it's good or not.
Now, this is the same book that the officers carry in the car with them, too.
Yes.
Yep. So it's.
And they can determine whether it's a real license or not.
And you update that every year, and so do the
Every year we get a
bartenders
new one.
and the restaurants. They get an update on it, so they keep them in.
Yep. But in addition to that, some of the things, the fake IDs, first of all, what we tell the guys is you look at it, you feel it, and you can almost tell just something doesn't look right. if a New York State driver's license, the photo, the person's head fills the frame. It fills that whole frame. If you're looking at the license and the photo of the person is very far back, usually that's a key to, hey, wait a minute, I need to look at this a little closer. If you see any marks near the driver's, the date of birth, has that been tampered with? That's usually the place where they make a mark. Little things like that will just give you the first, you can inspect it by hand. There's other machines, like Brian was saying, the scanners and things of that nature, that most of the restaurants and bars have here in town.
In fact, we were out the other day, you and I, doing a check, and also we found that some of our liquor stores are using them now too.
Right.
So
that's really good to have, but they're expensive.
yeah.
But you'd be surprised. Most of the time when you get a fake ID, if you look at it and hold it up to a light, you can see there's a hologram on them, there's a seal. New York State has a seal. There's special lights you can buy that just almost like a flashlight. You look a little across it, you can see the seal on them, see if they've been tampered with. And that's the things that we're going to go over during this training.
One of the things you were talking about, liability, and it's something that a lot of people don't realize, is that these restaurant owners and bartenders and whoever else is in charge of that, and the businesses, have to document when there's an incident. And we have mentioned to them there is a certain way to do this, to be able to report and have on hand for if you come there as an investigating officer, so you have the facts, they have the facts, and everything comes, of what happened. We've seen that happen in many places where they haven't documented it, and it led to civil suits, and it's leading to problems in the community.
Well, through the TIPS training that they emphasize it's very important to document every time there's any kind of incident that happens in their bar that could come back to them the next day. Somebody comes up and makes a complaint about something. Somebody trips and falls over. Whatever happens, they should just write it in the book, keep a continuing log. This way, the next day, if somebody comes back, or a week later, or a month later, and they say, oh, this happened in your restaurant, you'll be able to have a log. You'll see who was working. You'll be able to check things to help you refresh your memory, and all that goes to help you with.
I think that the big thing to remember that too when you're documenting is it's not just what happens inside the bar.
Thank you.
It's very much
that's
outside
exactly
the bar
right.
as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I know a lot of times that there is security or a bartender or a waiter or waitress, serving staff, someone may evict someone from a establishment. You know what, you're too much trouble, you're too intoxicated, you need to get out. Well, even though it's still on your property, you're still responsible. So if a report has to be generated to the New York State Liquor Authority, it still may be generated if an event occurs on your property. But like Sean was just saying, as long as you're documenting that you did everything in your power to avoid that, that kind of saves these establishments and the owners from fines and protects them a little bit, because they're covering them for them. They're covering themselves by documenting. But again, everything happens on. And one of the interesting parts in Yorktown, especially right down here in the business district area, it's very similar to almost like Mamaroneck Avenue, White Plains. We have four restaurant bar establishments within almost a block of each other.
Yeah.
So it's very difficult. You may have an issue with one place, and they may say, you know what, we're stopped serving this person. That patron may now try to go to the other three places. And it's unfortunate, but the way the law works, if it's near their property, they could still be liable. And that's not even a police matter, that's a civil matter.
Yeah, we've seen that happen in other communities, and I think it was a wake-up call for us here, definitely, that we needed to get that message out to the establishments that the responsibility just doesn't stop at the door.
Correct.
It's the parking lot, it's the back of the building, all of that.
Fortunately, most of, and in fact, all of the establishments right around here that I was just talking about all have cameras and great security systems. So that's kind of good, because it helps to really document the issue through video surveillance. And that helps us as police officers. It also helps them for liability purposes. But again, on their property too, is they could be held liable for certain actions that take place.
The laws that cover all of this underage drinking and alcohol itself are underneath the alcohol beverage control laws in New York State. There's a couple of sections, I guess, that you deal with that. Maybe you could give an overview of the section 65 A through D or.
Sean's like the know-it-all with the ABC stuff. He knows everything when it comes to
Crawl
that
out
stuff.
from underneath the bus. I just got thrown under.
But I think it's important also to note that there's a number of laws that apply here, because you have the New York State Penal Law, which could be prosecuted by the District Attorney's Office if applicable. You've got the alcohol beverage control laws that could be prosecuted by either the DA's office or our local town prosecutor, which our town prosecutors are more than willing to step up and say, you know what, we will prosecute it if the DA's office won't. If it may not rise to the level of a crime, if you will, rather a violation, then it'll get prosecuted. So there's a number of avenues that we can cover with this stuff. But you specific is important to the
But you also, before you delve into that, this section 65.
Article 65 of the ABC law.
Thank you.
It pretty much covers sale to minors. And when we go out and we do these sting operations, that's what we're trying to get these businesses to know that, look, we don't want you making sales to the minors, and these are the problems. This is what you're going to be charged with if you do make that sale. We tend to, I want to say Article 65C is the sale. I don't know. We got to look these things up all the time. That's why we have books at the police department.
The articles that cover this section that deal with the underage drinking. It actually, a lot of people don't know this, that there is a section in the law that states that if you're under 16, you're under 21, and that if you're under 21 and you have alcohol, you're going to, with the intent to consume, it's against the law. Am I correct or no? Yes. And it's something that a lot of the parents especially don't realize that. And then actually in some of our establishments in town don't realize that too. And that's something that I know that we've spoken to the SROs at the high school level, all of the new ones especially, and asked them to get that message across to when they're talking to kids at the school, or they're dealing with a situation that deals with underage drinking.
Well, I think that's important too, because a lot of the kids don't realize the old term, the old kegger that they'd have out in the woods with a bonfire. If there's alcohol around a bonfire and there's a group of students around that bonfire with the alcohol, even if they don't have it in their hand, they can be charged. This is one thing that they don't understand, is that, oh, well, I'm not drinking, I don't have it in my hand. They still can be charged, because under the law it states if that alcohol is present, they're under 21, there is an automatic intent to consume. So that's something they have to be very careful of. It is written right there in the law. So it's something that, even they say, oh, well, I'm in the bar, I'm under 21, but I didn't have a drink in my hand. There still are certain areas of the law that they have to be very careful as to what they're calling for their defense.
Yeah, definitely. And
to touch on, and I know we talked about it in another show. Sean keeps referring to our enforcement periods as sting operations, and Art and I talked about this in one of the shows. It's important for the public to realize too. This is not a trick, setup, entrapment thing, because you always hear those terms by the police department. We really try to find an average-looking 18-year-old. We don't look for the oldest-looking 18, 19-year-old that's in town. We find someone who's an average-looking student who is working with us, who is trained, who will show their actual ID when asked. There's no trick. They don't try to convince anybody. It's a very straightforward, here's the 18-year-old walking in trying to purchase some type of alcohol, whether that's in a bar atmosphere or a convenience store atmosphere, and there's no entrapment part of it. It's not a test. It's, here's an actual situation scenario. Do you sell or do you not sell? And a lot of times for first offenses, Sean especially will go in and educate the person and say, hey, you know what, you need to take part in some of our training programs because this is what you did wrong here, because we're trying to keep everybody safe.
Your protocol actually that we've created, and you guys up at the police department together with ASK, the protocol meets the level of what the federal government requires with their programs dealing with underage drinking, and something that we did some research and ASK. We have a very strong protocol dealing with the reasons and why we do things, and we follow them strictly, and I know you do, along with the DA's recommendations on age of the kids that you use in here.
Right.
And they actually go to a training class, if I'm correct.
Yep.
And their IDs are all their own. They never, they're not told to go in and lie.
Well, we start out with, we take an 18-year-old, either boy or girl, to come in. We photograph them that night so that we can show if somebody does make a sale to them that evening, what exactly they look like on that day.
Right.
So we start out with that. Then we go through, like you said, like a checklist of a training thing. We tell them the do's and don'ts. We don't want them to lie about anything. So if somebody behind the counter says, "How old are you?" You tell them you're 18. So, "Oh, I need you to sign here," or whatever they ask you to do, you need to do. We're not trying to play any tricks. We're straight up about it. We're not looking to trick anybody. And we go through that process, and then one of us either goes into the bar or restaurant with the person. But we kind of, we read a newspaper, we stand back out of the way. We're usually pretty good about, nobody even realizes we're in there with them, because we want to make sure the kid's safe and that nothing goes bad, which we never really had a problem. And one of the things that we notice, and we really have to work on this, is the math. When the person asks for the ID, take it up, they look at it, and generally the person behind the counter has a problem with that, with doing the math on the birth dates. And we've talked about this for a long time, and we've come out with calendars, and we've done different things that we can do to try and help them get through. But on those cases, it's not intentional. But we've had other ones, the person behind the counter could care less.
Yeah.
They look at their license, maybe they don't even ask for ID, just make the sale. And that's the kind of attitude that we're not going to stand for, and those are the people that are absolutely going to get a summons and going to find themselves in court. And so, that's what we're working towards, cleaning that kind of thing up.
And we have a good partnership when we do these operations and these things with a lot of parents and a lot of people through the Alliance for Safe Kids, that if we get complaints of a certain convenience store that's selling a lot, if we get complaints that there's a certain bar that is constantly serving underage drinkers, we will concentrate on that. We just don't pick out of a hat and say, all right, we just want to pick on this person. We will follow through with when we get complaints. So that being said, we welcome those phone calls, and you can be anonymous. We welcome the phone calls to the police department to say, hey, my son or daughter is under 21. I know that they were drinking at ABC bar, and we will do our best to follow up on that and enforce it. The whole key to this whole thing, it doesn't come down to revenue. It doesn't come down to just handing out tickets and getting statistical numbers. It comes down to keeping the kids safe in this town. That's the biggest thing.
That's exactly why this program is successful, and any program that deals with it, when the end result is the safety of your community, kids and parents and the whole thing, that's what it's all about. And that's why we here in the Alliance for Safe Kids are really happy that we have a coalition meeting, working every day and every week with all these different segments of the community, and especially the police department, which has been a wonderful support team for us, getting things done in the community, dealing with any issue dealing with drugs, alcohol, or even safety or crime. It's just a wonderful group that you work very hard to keep us that way, and our hats go off to you. We do have now the Responsible Vendors Training Program is going to be hopefully in November, the end of November, and it will be on our website, allianceforsafekids.org. It will also be in the patch. We'll have information there. And we hope to see as many people who are owners of businesses here who want to participate to show up. My invitation goes out to anyone who would like to come and see what we do and learn a little bit about the other side of what alcohol sales are like. Definitely, we'll be at Town Hall from 9 a.m. to 12, 3 hours. We're going to be covering promoting responsible alcohol sales, prevent sales to underage, prevent DWI, and have a safe environment not only at our premises but also in our community itself. I wanted to thank both of you really for coming tonight and coming today and being part of this presentation. So keep up the good work, and thank you so much.
Well, thanks.
Thank you.
We appreciate everything the Alliance for Safe Kids does.
It's a long road for you and me. It's a long road that I can see.